when it's on the page, and you have guys like Kurt Russell and Bill Paxton and Val Kilmer. The cast in that film alone, all of them, and a lot of them are gone today.
It is one of the most quoted Westerns ever made. 1,000-horsepower cast, a mustache that launched 1 million memes, and gunfight scenes burned into the memory of everyone who has ever loved the genre. But Tombstone hides a secret in plain sight, and the man who finally cracks it open is not Kurt Russell or Val Kilmer. It is the gravel-voiced giant who played Virgil Earp. Because Sam Elliott knew something about how this movie was really made and who was really calling the shots behind the camera, that most fans have never pieced together. And once you understand what he was fighting to protect on that set, you will never watch Tombstone the same way again. The movie that should have fallen apart. Before we get to what Sam Elliott knew, you have to understand just how close Tombstone came to never existing at all. In 1993, the Western was supposed to be dead. The genre that had defined Hollywood for half a century had faded into nostalgia. And into that graveyard walked a screenwriter named Kevin Jarre, the man who had written the Oscar-winning Civil War epic Glory. Jarre had crafted a Tombstone script so rich, so sprawling, so full of texture and history that it lured an absolutely staggering cast. Kurt Russell as Wyatt Earp, Val Kilmer as Doc Holliday, Sam Elliott as Virgil, Bill Paxton as Morgan, Powers Booth, Michael Biehn, Stephen Lang, Bill Bob Thornton, and the voice of Robert Mitchum himself narrating the whole thing. And here is a detail most people never learn. Kevin Jarre was not just the writer. He was supposed to be the director. This was going to be his directorial debut. Jarre's obsession with authenticity was total. He demanded the cast grow real period mustaches, styled and waxed exactly the way men of the 1880s wore them, with curled ends. This was not a small thing. The actors took a strange pride in it, treating their facial hair like a badge of honor and a mark of commitment to Jarre's vision. That obsessive authenticity was a huge part of what made the original Tombstone script so special, and so beloved by the actors who signed on to make it. They were not just doing a Western. They believed they were making the definitive one. It was a disaster. Jarre was a brilliant writer, but directing a massive period Western with horses, crowds, gunfights, and a sprawling ensemble proved to be a completely different animal. He fell behind schedule almost immediately. He struggled to get the shots he needed. He reportedly wanted to film like the legendary director John Ford, painting beautiful wide compositions, but he could not keep pace with the brutal demands of the production. Just 1 month into filming, the producer, Andy Vajna, fired him. And that is the moment Tombstone should have collapsed. The cast was in open revolt. The crew was fracturing. They had no director, a half-shot movie, and a ticking clock. What happened next is the secret that sits at the very center of this film, and Sam Elliott was standing right in the middle of it. The ghost behind the camera. When Kevin Jarre was fired, the studio brought in a new director named George P. Cosmatos, a veteran of action films like Rambo, First Blood Part 2, and Cobra. On paper, Cosmatos directed Tombstone. His name is on the film. For decades, that was the official story. It was not true. Years later, Kurt Russell revealed what had actually happened, and it is one of the wildest behind-the-scenes stories in Hollywood history. According to Russell, in an interview with True West magazine, he was the one who truly directed Tombstone. He had personally gone out and secured around $25 million in financing for the film from Andy Vajna. He had backed the project with his own reputation. So when the director was fired, the producers asked Russell to take over completely. But Russell said no to the credit. He did not want his name on it. He did not want to be known as the director. Instead, he proposed something extraordinary. They would bring in Cosmatos as what Russell called a ghost director, a public face, a frontman. And every single night, Russell would secretly hand Cosmatos a shot list for the next day. He would go to George's room, give him the list of exactly what to shoot, and that was the deal. The next day, Cosmatos would step onto the set and direct the scenes that Kurt Russell had planned the night before. Russell made one promise. He told Cosmatos that as long as the man was alive, he would never say a word about the arrangement. And Russell kept that promise. Cosmatos died in 2005. It was only in 2006, after his death, that Russell finally told the True West story publicly. The suggestion to hire Cosmatos, by the way, came from none other than Sylvester Stallone. Now, here is why this matters for Sam Elliott. Because when the star of the movie is secretly directing it, and that star starts making radical changes to the script, the rest of the cast has a choice. Go along with it, or fight back. Most of them went along. One of them did not. And that resistance is the thing most fans have never figured out. The cut that started a war. Once Kurt Russell took secret control of Tombstone, he made a decision that would define the entire film. And it is the decision Sam Elliott could not stomach. Russell looked at Kevin Jarrett's beautiful, sprawling script and concluded it was simply too big to film in the time and money they had left. So he started cutting. He and producer James Jacks tore roughly 30 pages out of the screenplay. Entire subplots vanished. Supporting characters who had major arcs in Jarrett's version, played by actors like Billy Zane and Jason Priestley, were reduced to a handful of lines. The famous Earp Vendetta ride, a sweeping section of the original script, got compressed down to almost a montage. Russell had a specific vision for why he was doing this. He wanted to focus the film like a laser on one relationship, the bond between Wyatt Earp and Doc Holliday. He later described that friendship as one of the great love affairs of all time between two men. Strange and violent and unspoken, but deep and fiercely loyal. To sharpen that bond, everything else had to shrink. And to his enormous credit, Russell cut his own part too. He did not protect the Kurt Russell role. According to the True West account, he kept telling Jarrett, who was rewriting pages, to give lines away. Give that one to Morgan. Give that to the other characters. He insisted this was not the Kurt Russell show. He wanted an ensemble. Val Kilmer reportedly told him he could cut all of Doc Holliday's lines if he wanted, because Kilmer knew he would steal every scene anyway with that little drinking cup in his hand. The cast cooperated. Powers Booth, Bill Paxton, all of them sacrificed screen time in the blistering Arizona heat to keep the production alive. Everyone went along with the great trimming of Tombstone. Everyone except one man. And his reaction has become the stuff of legend. If you cut a word, I'll kill you. Sam Elliott played Virgil Earp, the older brother, the moral center, the man who pins on the badge and tries to bring law to a lawless town. And Sam Elliott looked at what was happening to Kevin Jarrett's script and drew a hard line. According to the True West account of the production, while the rest of the cast was happily giving up dialogue and Val Kilmer was offering to cut all his own lines, Sam Elliott delivered a warning that nobody who heard it ever forgot. He said that if they cut a single word of his dialogue, he would kill them. He was the only cast member who refused to surrender his lines. Now, you can hear that as a joke, the kind of gruff, half-laughing threat that actors throw around on a tense set. But underneath it was something completely real, and this is the heart of what Sam Elliott understood that most fans never did. Elliott was not being a diva. He was trying to protect the soul of the movie. Because Sam Elliott had read Kevin Jarrett's original screenplay, and he believed it was one of the greatest scripts he had ever held in his hands. In a 1993 Entertainment Weekly interview conducted while the film was still fresh, Elliott said it plainly. He said the screenplay, initially, was one of the best he had ever read. And then he said something that should make every Tombstone fan sit up. He said that if he had been handed the script in the form it ended up in, the cut-down version that became the movie, he would have had to pass on it. He would not have done the film. Read that again. The man who gave us one of the most beloved Virgil Earp performances in history believed the version they actually shot was a shadow of what it should have been. He felt the cuts had ripped out what he called the connective tissue, the character development, the roughly 29 pages that gave the story its depth and its soul. To Sam Elliott, Tombstone as we know it is a magnificent fragment of a much greater film that never got made. And there is a reason Elliott felt this so personally. Virgil Earp, his character, was one of the roles most affected by the cuts. In Jara's original script, Virgil was the true lawman of the family, the older brother whose moral conviction drives the Earps to finally take up their badges. A lot of the quieter material that built Virgil into a fully rounded man, the connective tissue Elliott kept talking about, was exactly the kind of scene that got trimmed to keep the film moving. So when Sam Elliott drew his line in the sand, he was not just defending dialogue in the abstract. He was fighting for the heart of his own character, and for the slower, richer, more human movie that he had fallen in love with when he first read it. And that tension between Russell chasing a lean, focused emotional gut punch and Elliott fighting to preserve Jara's sprawling masterpiece is the invisible war buried inside every frame of this movie. The masterpiece that got away. Here is where the story becomes genuinely haunting for anyone who loves this film. Because Sam Elliott was not the only one who came to believe Tombstone could have been something even greater. Kurt Russell himself, the very man who made the cuts, has spent decades wrestling with it. In that 2006 True West interview, Russell said something stunning. He said that Kevin Jara's original version of the movie was The Godfather, a Western Godfather. He said that is how different the original was from the one audiences saw. Stephen Lang, who played Ike Clanton, agreed, describing Jara's script as essentially The Godfather set in 1880s Arizona and saying it was so good. Think about that. The people who made Tombstone believe that buried inside the production was a film on the level of one of the greatest movies ever made. And they could not get it onto the screen because of time, money, and the chaos of a director getting fired 1 month in. It haunts Kurt Russell to this day. In a 2026 interview with The Hollywood Reporter, more than 30 years after the film came out, Russell admitted he would never make peace with what happened to Tombstone. He said it could have been way better. This is a man whose movie is considered one of the greatest westerns ever made, and he still cannot fully enjoy it because he knows what it was supposed to be. And the wildest part? The footage may still exist. Russell has said he was given the original material shot for the film, and that piles of unseen footage are sitting somewhere. For years, fans have begged for a true director's cut, a reconstruction of Jara's full vision, the Godfather version of Tombstone. Russell has hinted he might do it someday, that he would have to go back to his old notes and the script. He even mentioned finding the last scene he wrote, a hospital scene between Wyatt and Doc. But it has never happened. The greater Tombstone remains locked away, exactly as Sam Elliott feared it would be. So the next time someone tells you Tombstone is a perfect movie, you will know the secret. The people who made it do not entirely agree. They are mourning the film it could have been. The what-ifs that could have changed everything. Once you understand how fragile this production was, the near misses start to pile up, and any one of them could have erased the Tombstone we love. Start with the casting. The role of Doc Holliday, the performance that made Val Kilmer a legend and gave us the immortal line about being someone's huckleberry, was originally set aside for Willem Dafoe. The only thing that stopped it was Hollywood politics. The studio, Disney, was still nervous about the controversy surrounding Dafoe's earlier film, The Last Temptation of Christ, and refused to cast him. That refusal is the only reason Val Kilmer got the part. But it goes even deeper. At one point, producer Andy Vajna floated a completely different version of the film to Kurt Russell. He asked Russell what he would think about playing Doc Holliday himself, with Richard Gere stepping in as Wyatt Earp. Imagine that for a moment. A Tombstone with Richard Gere as Wyatt and Russell as Doc. The entire chemistry of the film, the very bond that Russell would later fight to protect, would have been something else entirely. And then there was the rival production. At the exact same time Tombstone was being made, Kevin Costner was making a competing Wyatt Earp movie. Costner had actually been offered Tombstone first and had been involved with Kevin Jarre early on, before splitting off to make his own version. According to the people who made Tombstone, Costner then used his considerable star power to try to pressure studios into not financing or distributing their film. He even reportedly tried to corner the market on authentic Western costumes, forcing the Tombstone team to source their wardrobe from Europe. Tombstone nearly got crushed before it ever reached theaters. But it survived all of it. The fired director, the secret ghost director, the gutted script, the casting near misses, the sabotage. And when it came out at Christmas in 1993, it did something nobody expected. Wyatt worked anyway. Tombstone opened in December of 1993 and went on to gross over $73 million, becoming one of the highest-grossing westerns in modern history. Costner's rival film, by contrast, was widely seen as bloated and slow, and it underperformed. The leaner, faster, more focused Tombstone won, and that is the great irony sitting at the center of this whole story. The very cuts that Sam Elliott hated, the trimming that he believed gutted the film, may be exactly what made it a commercial hit. Russell's instinct to strip the movie down to the electric bond between Wyatt and Doc gave audiences something propulsive and quotable and endlessly rewatchable. The film became a cult classic precisely because it was lean. So who was right? Sam Elliott, who fought to preserve the rich, sprawling, Godfather-sized epic? Or Kurt Russell, who cut it to the bone to make it move? The answer is that they were both right. And that is what makes the story so endlessly fascinating. The Tombstone we got is a tight, thrilling, ferociously quotable classic, a movie that moves like a bullet and never once lets the audience check their watch. And that is thanks to Russell's cuts. He looked at a sprawling, overstuffed production that was bleeding time and money, and he made the brutal calls that turned it into something an audience could actually fall in love with. Without those cuts, there is a real chance the film never gets finished at all, or finishes as a bloated mess that no one remembers today. But the Tombstone we did not get, the full version that haunts the men who made it, might have been a genuine masterpiece, a Western on the scale of The Godfather. And that is what Sam Elliott was trying to save. He had held that script in his hands. He had read the connective tissue before it was torn out. The quiet character beats, the slower scenes that let these legends breathe between gunfights. He knew what was on those 29 pages, and he knew that once they were gone for good. That is what Sam Elliott understood that most fans never figured out. When you watch Tombstone, you are not watching a finished masterpiece. You are watching the magnificent, action-packed wreckage of an even greater film, held together by a star who secretly directed it and an ensemble who sacrificed their own scenes to save it. Every great line you love is a survivor, and somewhere, the rest of the story is still waiting in the dark. Sam Elliott did not just play Virgil Earp. He was the one man on that set who looked at what was being lost and refused to stay quiet about it. He fought for the words. He fought for the soul of Kevin Jarre's script. And in doing so, he left behind the biggest secret in Tombstone, the knowledge that the greatest Western of its era is also one of the greatest movies that never fully got made. If you liked this, hit like and subscribe, and make sure to check out our other videos.